Bach Flower Remedies are often described as gentle, natural, and subtle, but what if I told you that what they really do is far more radical than most people realize? What if Bach Flower Remedies are not just for emotions, but a form of alchemy, a way of transforming inner states and the outer world, the way alchemists once spoke of transforming lead into gold. In this video, I want to take you beyond the usual explanations, beyond they calm you down or they balance emotions. We're going to talk about what Bach Flower Remedies really do on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, and even on an alchemical level. And by the end of this video, you may never look at them again as just flower drops. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a Bach Flower practitioner and vibrational healer, and I work with people who are emotionally very self-aware, often very sensitive, and who want to understand themselves more deeply and improve their lives using natural, non-invasive tools such as Bach Flower Remedies. And one of the things I notice again and again is that people use Bach flowers but don't really understand what is happening inside of them when they do. Most explanations of Bach Flower Remedies sound something like this. They help you with emotions. But that's not precise enough, because emotions are not just feelings that come and go. They are really states. And emotional states, they shape so much of us. They shape how your nervous system reacts, how your body holds tension, how you perceive the world, how you make decisions, what decisions you make, how you relate to others, how your relationships look like, how safe or unsafe life feels. When Edward Bach spoke about emotional states, he wasn't just talking about fleeting emotions and fleeting moods. He was really talking about patterns of consciousness, ways of being in the world that become so familiar we just stop questioning them. Alchemy historically was never just about chemistry. It was about transformation and transmutation, turning something dense or heavy or reactive into something refined, clear, or stable. And this is where Bach Flower Remedies fit far better than most modern explanations allow. There is an important distinction I want to make here, because it explains why Bach Flower Remedies feel so different from most personal development work. We often talk about transformation, but what Bach Flower Remedies aim for is actually transmutation. Transformation is when something changes shape, but the underlying substance stays the same. For instance, water turns into ice. Or you're still afraid, but you've kind of learned how to manage it. You're still impatient, but you've learned how to control it. You're still full of guilt, but you kind of force yourself to say no anyway. That kind of change takes a lot of effort, and it works up to a point. But it also means that you're constantly holding yourself together. Transmutation is very different. Transmutation means that the inner substance itself changes. The fear doesn't get managed, it loses its grip. The guilt doesn't get suppressed, it dissolves into self-respect. The impatience doesn't get controlled, it softens into trust and timing. From the outside, the behavior might look very similar, but on the inside, everything is different. There is no tension, no effort, no inner fight. That's why people sometimes say, I didn't try to change. It just stopped being a problem. And that's transmutation. This is where Bach Flower Remedies act like a form of floral alchemy. They don't work by telling you what to do. They don't force insight. They don't override your personality. They gently change the inner state you're operating from. And when that inner state really changes, your reactions, your choices, your boundaries and relationships reorganize naturally. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're no longer the same on the inside. It's as above, so below. When the inner world changes, the outer world cannot stay the same. Let's take an example. Fear is not just fear. Fear shapes your posture, your breathing, your muscle tone, your attention. Someone in fear scans for danger, anticipates loss, contracts inward, becomes vigilant, and over time this becomes an inner posture. Bach Flower Remedies work exactly here at the level of inner posture. Now, another aspect is water. So Bach Flower Remedies are made by imprinting water with the energetic pattern of a specific plant or flower, not the chemical constituents, the pattern. Now, water is something really special. It records, it carries information, it responds to structure. So when you take a Bach Flower Remedy, you're not just adding something, you are truly introducing a new pattern into a system that has been repeating the same one sometimes for years. And the nervous system responds to patterns much faster than to words. Many people who are drawn to Bach Flower Remedies are already really self-aware. They understand their childhood, they understand their trauma, they understand their patterns, and yet the body keeps reacting the same way. And that is because insight lives in the mind, but emotional patterns live in the body, nervous system loop. Bach Flower Remedies speak that language. They don't argue, they don't convince, they entrain slowly, gently. They invite the system into a different state. When we talk about alchemy or even magic, we're not talking about fantasy. We're really talking about a very old principle, as above, so below, as within, so without. Meaning, when something changes inside you, the outer world doesn't stay the same. Not because the world is obeying you, but because you are no longer meeting the world from the same inner state. Bach Flower Remedies work exactly on that level. They don't force events. They don't manipulate reality. They change the inner state from which you move, speak, decide, and respond. And because your inner state is what constantly shapes your behavior, your tone, your boundaries, your choices, the world inevitably responds differently. There's a simple difference here between transformation and transmutation. Transformation means a change of form, expression, behavior, while the underlying essence stays the same material, but in a different shape or state. Often reversible, often behavioral or psychological. Examples: you were angry and now you're calm. You used to react and now you pause. Fear becomes courage in action. Ice melts into water. The same substance, different state. Transformation is about change. Now let's have a look at transmutation. Transmutation means a change of nature or quality at the deepest level. The inner substance itself changes. The old state is no longer needed. It's not just behavior, identity, and inner orientation, and it's often irreversible. Let me give some examples. Fear doesn't turn into courage, it dissolves into trust. Guilt doesn't get managed, it becomes self-respect. People-pleasing doesn't get controlled, it disappears when the self-image has changed. Lead becomes gold, which is the alchemical metaphor here. So transmutation is about becoming something else. And careful here, because I didn't say becoming someone else. You're more you, not less. So in alchemy, transformation is working on the surface, refining, purifying, adjusting. But transmutation is really changing the prima materia, the very substance of being. A person might transform anger into restraint, but there's still anger underneath. But if you transmutate that anger into clarity, it means that anger no longer exists as a driver. Bach Flower Remedies are not symptom repressors, and they're not just emotional band-aids. They don't say, you are impatient, here's how to behave better. They work on the inner state that creates impatience. And when they work deeply, impatience doesn't get controlled. It really loses its grip, and that's transmutation. Let's give an example for people-pleasing. For the transformation, you would still feel guilty, but you say no anyway. With transmutation, you no longer feel guilty for saying no. So it's the same behavior, but it's a radical different reality. Transformation changes how you act. Transmutation changes who you are being. Or transformation is effortful change, but transmutation is a change of inner substance. So let me give you a very concrete example from my own life. For a long time, I was a people pleaser. I said yes all the time, I adapted constantly, I put my own needs last. And on the surface, well, that looked like kindness. But internally, I can tell you, that state was very different. I carried a lot of guilt, I had very low energy, I had almost no time for myself. I didn't develop my talents the way I could have. And over time, I became really very grumpy, angry, resentful, and exhausted. Not because people were bad, but because I wasn't in integrity with myself. And that inner state, guilt, self-denial, over-adaptation, was shaping my entire reality. Because when you live in a people-pleasing state, well, something very specific happens energetically and practically. You give more than you have. You don't signal clear limits. You suppress your own rhythm. And you teach others unconsciously how to treat you. So, well, what kind of people do you attract in that state? People who take. People who don't hear no. People who are comfortable with that imbalance. Not because they are evil, but because the field you're operating from allows it. And that's the uncomfortable truth. Now, when I started working on that inner state, not just behaviorally, but emotionally and more deeply, something subtle but powerful happened. I started saying yes a little less and no a little more. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just honestly. And that small inner shift rippled outward. I had more energy. I felt softer, not harder. I had clearer boundaries without needing to explain myself all the time. My relationships improved, not because others suddenly changed, but because I was no longer available for the same dynamics. People who couldn't deal with a no simply fell away, and people who could deal with a no came closer. This isn't about affirmations or pretending everything is fine. It is about changing the state you inhabit. Bach Flower Remedies support exactly that kind of shift. They work at the level of guilt or self-denial, fear of disappointing, inner contraction. And when those soften, your behavior changes naturally. And when you change, the world does too. It has to. This is also what people call manifestation, but stripped of the fantasy. You don't manifest anything by wishing. You manifest by being in a different state. When your inner state changes, your decisions change, your timing changes, your boundaries change, your energy changes, and the world reflects that back at you. These are the laws of nature. Two people can take the same remedy and experience very different things because the remedy doesn't impose a result. It interacts with your system. It brings awareness to what is ready to shift. For one person, that may look like emotional release. For another, physical relaxation. For another, clearer decisions. For another, unexpected life changes. That's not randomness at all. That is alchemy, responding to the material at hand. And this is why Bach Flower Remedies are not about taking more. They are really about repeated, gentle exposure to a new state. Like learning a new language or teaching the body a new rhythm. If this way of understanding Bach Flower Remedies resonates with you, I teach this approach in my self-paced course, Bloom into Balance. It is designed for people who want to work on themselves, not to become someone else, not to become practitioners, but to transform, or better said, transmutate their lives. I'm also available for consultations if that's the help you are looking for, and you can find all my links in the description. Bach Flower Remedies are about bringing change into the world, not by changing who you are, but by changing your internal state and becoming who you really are. That's floral alchemy. I loved making this video. Thanks for being here with me. And of course, I'll see you in the next one.